We're gonna start with not really a history lesson, but we're gonna kind of backtrack a little bit through the last few decades of technology. We're gonna cover some of the hot points and some of the major points of innovation. The theme for me today really is kind of this uptick that we're seeing in the rate of innovation and the rate of new things coming to the market, specifically for the business community. We'll start in 1971. Okay, who was around for 1971? 1971 was the year that they invented the CPU.
You weren't.
Okay, who knows what the CPU is? Central Processing Unit. Thank you, David. Took what? Before then, took up cabinets and rooms full of vacuum tubes and transistors and large technology, large pieces of equipment to run and perform complex tasks, and they consolidated it down to essentially a little chip, okay, or a little board that went into a box. So major revolution in technology. Allowed technology to be a little bit more portable and made it more available to the business community. In the 70s, though, really the only businesses out there that were using computers were large companies. Okay, they were the only ones that could afford it. They were the only ones that had the space. They were the only ones that could afford the staff, the highly specialized staff that was required to run and support and maintain those systems. Fast forward 10 years, 1981, IBM releases their PC to the market. Takes another 5 to 6 years for that to really penetrate the market, yet IBM sales reps going all over the country hawking these $10,000+ systems to small, mid-sized businesses. The drawback was, in the 1980s, $10,000 plus, that was a lot of money for a small business. It's even a lot of money for a small business today. So if they bought one, they bought one. And in the 1980s, there really wasn't a whole lot that a computer could do. It was a glorified word processor, maybe with a spreadsheet or a database application, something very specific, very limited. So there really wasn't a whole lot of benefit added to a business by purchasing a computer. And if a computer broke, the business wasn't shut down by that computer breaking. The old methods were still in play. People still knew how to use a ledger. People still knew how to perform all of those tasks manually. A typewriter was still out there. Everybody remember typewriters way back in the day. And spell check hadn't been invented yet. So going to a word processor on a computer really didn't help you that much. It was basically just a typewriter on a screen. The screens were really small. Fast forward again, and we're talking about large gaps of time, large spaces of time elapsed before major innovations occur. Fast forward again, 10, 15 years into the 90s. Really not a whole lot going on with the computer. It really hadn't changed a whole lot. The screen had gotten bigger. You had more colors on the screen. There were some other things that you could do on the computer. Games were starting to come out for the computer. You know, people were putting solitaire on Windows, things like that. Solitaire, Minesweeper, everybody remember that. It wasn't really until the mid-90s, though, that you saw another big jump, and that was the internet. Okay, everybody remembers the little triangle with the circle in the middle of it, AOL. Okay, you double-click something on your computer, it starts making funny noises. You sit there and wait 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20 minutes for it to get online, and then you've got mail. Whoa, that was a game changer. Okay, email changed the landscape of communication, really did, and now it's one of the primary methods of communication. Faxing, who remembers that? Okay, how many people? Well, how often do you fax versus email? The ratio is so skewed, it's not even funny. So everybody remember Back to the Future? Okay, Michael J. Fox sitting in his living room. Back to the Future 2. You're fired. He pushes a button, sends a fax to him, and this paper starts spitting out of walls. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Well, they got that wrong. That's this year, folks. 2015. That was the year he went into the future. We don't fax anymore. Not really. It's been replaced by email. And even when we do fax, it's digital. Okay, we send faxes and it pops up into my email, or it pops into a folder as a PDF file. Okay, that technology's gone. But the internet and the proliferation of that information changed a lot of things. Fast forward again. Now we're getting into the 2000s. From a business perspective, computing still really hadn't changed that much. You have PCs scattered around. You've got PCs now pretty much on every desk. And you've got servers somewhere in a closet holding an ever-increasing amount of accumulated data. Okay, businesses continue to accumulate information and data as they go. They've got to retain their books. They've got to retain information about their employees. And typically now that stuff's digital. But the infrastructure behind it really hadn't increased in complexity that much. Hard drives got bigger. You might have a couple additional servers in the closet. But other than that, not a whole lot of change. The next significant change in the market was this. Mid-2000s, Apple releases the iPhone and completely changes the landscape of communication yet again. Now, in the palm of my hand, I have every tool that was available to me in 1995, but in 1995 it required 3 or 4 different pieces of equipment. I had a computer, I had a PDA maybe, remember Palm, okay? I had a phone. Well, now all that's right here, and more, okay? So it changed the landscape yet again. Fast forward again, this time a much shorter period of time, 2010, and really 2011, 2012, the cloud. And the cloud's really a big word, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But really the cloud has accelerated tremendously the rate of innovation in the market today. It's given small businesses access to technologies that heretofore only large companies had access to, okay? If I'm a small business and I want to go out and bring an enterprise email solution to my office, or an enterprise level CRM, or some kind of big software package that's going to help my business grow, all I have to do is go to a provider, and I can pick from thousands of them out there. I pick the provider, I pay them a bill monthly, just like I would pay electricity or water, and now I can get a service or a piece of technology that's critical to my business without making a significant capital investment. Okay? It's huge. It's changed everything completely. There's a problem with that, though. With change, the business has to adapt, okay? And the service providers that support those technologies have to adapt alongside that. Well, in the previous 3 decades, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, those changes were fairly slow, okay? Businesses were able to adapt fairly well along with the rate of technology growth. Now it's growing so fast that unless you're keeping up with it full time, unless it's something that you're really, really, really interested in, like me, I tend to geek out about this type of stuff, it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to keep up with. So what does that mean for a small business? And what do all these changes mean for the small business owner? For a business operator, it's a wonderful time, but it's a very scary time at the same time. The landscape of ever-changing technology is making things very difficult for a small business owner, because it makes it difficult for them to make decisions on technology. Okay? So what does your typical small business owner do? I'll speak for myself. If I need legal services, if I get in trouble, I'm going to go to Paul. I'm not going to represent myself in court. If I need financial services or bookkeeping services, I'm going to go to Vicky, because that's not my expertise. A small business owner is going to solicit the services of a provider like me, hopefully me, but a provider like me to help them kind of navigate that landscape. Because technology is evolving so quickly, it's very, very difficult for even people in my field to navigate it. Okay, so what happens? A small business kind of hitches their wagon to a provider. Okay, it's typically a 1 or 2 man shop, a small company, similar to myself, where we've got a handful of folks, and that becomes a relationship that they're tied to. Okay? It becomes a relationship that's very critical to their business, because technology now drives everything. It's not like 1985. If your computers go down, your business is down. If your phones go down, your business is down. So how do you navigate that? Unless the provider that you've hitched your wagon to is constantly reinventing themselves, constantly analyzing the way that they're doing business in their marketplace, and constantly finding new ways to innovate in your business, your business is going to not necessarily stagnate, but it's going to lose its edge. The biggest difference for us, and the biggest thing that sets us apart, is we're constantly doing that reanalysis. We're constantly looking at new ways to improve our customers' businesses. And that really is the biggest difference for us. My focus, or our focus as a company, is not necessarily directly our profit margin in any given situation. It's the profit margin of our customer. Because ultimately, the only time we're going to be profitable and make money is when our customers are doing that. So how do we do that? Not time? All right. How do we do that? We look for ways to improve their processes, okay? Improve the ways that they do business on a daily basis, okay? Any questions?
How do you and your partners split up how you keep current so that y'all don't duplicate effort?
We all have different skill sets and different focuses. So my skill set really is on the incorporating technology into revenue activity. Okay, so I focus on the part of the business that makes that business money, right? And I try to identify processes and key points of that company that I can help improve to help improve revenue. So tying their website to marketing efforts, or tying marketing efforts to their website, and then giving them meaningful data that they can use to say, okay, well, this effort worked very well. This effort that we paid this much money for didn't work at all, and give them something that they can then track through their sales cycle, so to speak. One of my other partners, very heavily technically focused, so he's going to work on the back end of things and trying to improve business processes, right? So things as simple as accounts payable, processing checks, processing invoices. That information flows through a company and typically has some kind of an approval process that goes along with it. What he's going to be doing is focusing on the software side of things to help automate those processes and then increase bottom line revenue. So my focus is top line revenue, helping the business leverage technology to bring money into the business. His focus is bottom line revenue, helping the company keep the money that does come in. And then we've got other folks in the organization that focus a little bit more around efficiency and user experience. And it's constantly changing, right? It's constantly changing. 6 months now is the cycle for new things coming to the market, where it used to be 3 to 5 years. So that's how we kind of keep it all focused.
Do you find that small businesses are a little bit crippled by that? Because I know when we think about, upgrading even hardware or software, we've done it a few times in a 6, 8, 10 month window. You almost need to do it again. So is that something that you help bring the expertise to say, okay, stay put for now, because 12, 14 months,
Yes.
You're going to really want to upgrade then?
Yes, and the landscape's changing to the point to where you don't have to be on that constant 3-year cycle. Software is getting to, and the models are changing to the point to where everything's going to become a subscription. Okay, so the latest and greatest is always going to be available. What we focus on, though, is whether or not the latest and greatest is a fit for the business today.
Gotcha.
Okay, because oftentimes it's not. The cloud, everybody's talking about the cloud. In most cases, the cloud is not the best option for a small business. Right now, the way it exists today, the total cost of ownership for a purely cloud-based business is more than what it would be to have some of these systems in-house. As far as software upgrades and things like that, we tend to try to stay at least 1 revision behind schedule. I don't ever recommend putting the latest technology in place. It's always a mix. Every company's different. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.